Good evening, everybody. I really welcome you all here, and your presence really helps us understand that how important this matter is to our system today, like she mentioned. And definitely, I assume I'm also taking this into account that we all are keen to see find ways how do we really help our children become self-directed learners, and even before that the quest for the evening would be how I myself become a self directed learner before I even facilitate this in my classroom. So, I really welcome you all. We will delve and think deeper about the concept. Please, at any point, if you have a question, do put it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand button after I present. And during the presentation, also, I request that all of you um, make sure that your presence counts, right? So, like in our classes, we want our learners to be active learners. Same applies here, right? So your 100% participation will only be making this whole session meaningful. So your whatever concepts I'm going to share, it might still be something you might have read somewhere you were already aware of it, but that's absolutely okay. Reiteration works out well. Okay, so one little pre-workshop ritual that I follow is that I would really like to know what might be your burning questions or what might be something that you are already aware of. So one request, if cameras can be on, that helps us know that we are not talking to screens or picture or just names. There is someone sitting on the other side. So request you to please turn on your cameras if possible, if the bandwidth allows. That also ensures 100% participation in the session. Otherwise, it's human brain. It works differently. Okay. So I'm going to share a link with you. There's a tool Mentimeter, which I really think that helps do a lot in very less time. So let me see that I'm trying to put that in the chat. The question will be on my screen while I present. No audio. Can you hear? Somebody is in the chat is writing no audio. Please try to check for yourself. Would anybody in the, participants here do a thumbs up if you can hear me? I can hear myself. Can you hear me? Yeah, a thumbs up. Okay, okay, I can see. I can see it's clear to some of us. So some of us, oh, loud and clear. Yeah, definitely. A teacher's voice has to be loud and clear. Okay, so I request the ones who are not able to do it, please check your audio settings, and we would certainly have. So there's a tool. If my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you see? You see Teams.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to screen. Is Mentimeter visible now?
Yes, yes.
Please help me during the presentation wherever I need help.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm just presenting. What might be the question is, so in the session before we even before I share it, I would really be interested in knowing what is it that you expect from the session. So this response you can certainly put in the chat, or maybe we can have 2, 3 volunteers who would like to share what brings you here. And you can raise hands. Any 2 volunteers we can have maybe here, or others can write in the chat. What brings you here? It's about self-directed learning. Anybody who's raising hands? I mean, since I'm presenting, I cannot see. Are there any responses in the chat?
Um, in the chat, yeah, some new ideas for modern education.
Okay. So we'll try to see. This helps me align what am I going to present and what might set the tone of this whole evening, right? It definitely needs to address your expectations as well. Okay, so definitely modern resources or methods. What else? Just wait for another maybe a minute or so.
Yes.
Please think and put your thoughts in the chat.
Students motivated to learn.
Okay. Students
New
motivation.
perspectives,
Okay, interesting. We will cover all this. I hope we will.
autonomous learning praxis,
Autonomous learning practices. Okay.
new tech
So
tools to incorporate it and meet competency.
very interesting. Even when we think of self-directed learning, we cannot separate the concept of blended learning as well. So blended learning will try to dive a little deeper into what blended learning might be. Not exactly making this session to be on blended learning because that requires another time. But yes, tool integration is a great aspect to self-directed learning, right? So one of the ways is how we are trying to do it. Okay. So do share if there's any other responses.
Yeah,
This is
sure.
the code. There is okay. There's the other question written here. I'm looking forward to resources. I want to discuss this topic. I just want to learn new things. I want
There's
to
one
find
more,
ways,
ma'am.
yeah,
Yeah, learning with AI tools.
learning with AI tools. Very important because certainly we are in this time when AI is highly, we need to make it a friend rather than just become a foe, right? So there's two, the link is in the chat. I hope you all can access. There will be two interactive slides here. One is the slider. If you can see, I'll go back to the slider. So you can select the slider to talk about it, whether, it's like a rating scale. So I'm looking forward to the resources. I might use the slider to come here, or I want to just discuss this topic. I just want to learn new things, connecting to the expectations that you have for whatever topics you said, that perspective, tools, methods, technology, right? So, okay, I'm looking. Please excuse the mistakes. I'm looking forward to resources. It's a missing word. Okay, just want to learn new things. You can use all the sliders to say that. Mhm. We'll just wait for a few more responses. I think we've got just three people who are able to access. Okay, six voices. Make your voice heard. It's very, very important.
And when there are few who have shared their opinion in the chat box, just want to learn
Okay.
new things.
Okay. So we are okay. If you are facing struggle with this tool, you may definitely put it in the chat. Just want to learn new things. Okay. I'm glad that you find this as a newer concept, though we will find out how it's not that new though. Okay. Nine. We have nine responses to another 30 seconds.
Want to learn new things from another guest.
Okay. That's interesting that many of you are here to like curious participants, yeah, who are interested in exploring, much like our learners, always willing. Okay, 11. Okay. Please put it in the chat if you're not able to use the tool.
Yeah, there's another
6.
opinion. Want to learn new things, improve methods of teaching and learning.
Mhm. Improve methods. Okay. So you may keep pouring it in. I think looking at time, we move on. So we move on to this idea. We already have 4 responses here. What do you already know about this subject? Okay, a little bit, but not sure what you mean. Okay. Students are curious to learn by themselves. So what is our prior understanding is what the intention here is. Please do make sure this is very important. I request you all to put your responses to this. What do you already know about it? I mean, when you hear self-directed learning, what do you connect with it? You say curiosity, or someone says flipped classroom and blended learning. Definitely. What might be the associated word with it? If you cannot really think of anything that you know. Let's have a minute. I'll be the timekeeper. Okay. Request everyone. Does anyone here think about choices to be a part of self-directed learning? Someone talked about motivation. Okay, these are certain questions I'm throwing. We can think about it and we'll certainly go through them in the presentation. Still have 20 seconds. Please do respond. Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. We have few opinions in the chat box.
Okay.
Self-driven, blended learning, taking ownership.
Okay. Ownership. Yeah. Please hang on to these ideas. It's like it's our collective understanding that we all are building as we keep emphasizing in a classroom that teaching learning is a co-constructive space, right? A process where someone's giving, someone's receiving, and receiving back in the process. So we are creating this understanding in the session that what you know already, plus what I'm going to talk about, plus what might your context really, expects you to do. So that's very important to set an intention that so your intention is definitely to learn new things, explore the concept. Now we are going to say that what is it that I already know about? Much like children, like you do a prior knowledge understanding, you want to build something on their understanding and also clarify somewhere in the process. Okay, somewhere connect the pieces, somewhere maybe fill the gaps. So it's much like that. Somewhere whatever you all are saying is directly related to self-directed learning. But then the how and why definitely it, makes us try to explore this area a little more with our children's participation. Because self directed learning is not just a teacher's construct like everything. Okay, I think we can move on with the presentation here. Thank you for your responses. I'll just take a minute to go back to my presentation. Anyone who has any question, please do put that in the chat. It's very important. I'm just going to open the presentation that I have for the evening. If I just ask you to, you know, I know it'll be a little content heavy, maybe a little, but I'll try as much as I can keep it lighter because we all are educators here. So, self-directed learning, someone really beautifully wrote it that definitely it's about being creative, it's about being curious. So, children are by nature curious. So the idea is how do we encash that opportunity or how do we leverage that opportunity that they are already curious. Now if I am the teacher and I'm giving you a context here, I go in my classroom, I teach the best of the lessons, and I come back and I don't see my children participating. So in this case, but they are curious, and by nature many studies show children are creative. You see the young children from the toddlers age to everything else, they are creative in their own ways. Now what happens when we create learning in the classroom? So so self-directed learning, if you see the key component, let's break it down: self, directed, and learning. So there are three words to it, right? So of course self is my own self, I'm curious, I'm creative. Directed would mean, what does it really mean? And how does this self-directed learning becomes a phrase and theory in itself for an educator to really try to weave the entire experience different? Okay, so I request your attention here. Very simple. We're going to see what does it really mean, what might be the need of self-directed learning, why do we even need it? It's just a fancy concept. NEP says it, but what is its relevance in the current time? So if I ask anybody here in the session can definitely delve into this idea, why is it relevant? It's just because I need some modern tools in my class? Or is it just because I want to see that I use technology in my class? Or is it only because everybody is doing it, so I need to do it? Yeah. So please, I request, the introspection really helps in self-directed learning. So you introspect and see what brings you here. Therefore, the question was, what brings you here? Therefore, the question is about what is the relevance? Why do I want to do it in my class? Because my school wants me to do it? Because there is technology, I have to do it? How ready I am? I'm just trying to throw these questions so that we think in these directions. Now, so diving into the concept itself, it's not a latest, very not very latest trend in education. Back in 1960s also, if you see the theories, you will see even before then, people talked about self-directed learning. So in fact, I was even reading this, the context of liberal arts, if you see in education, multidisciplinary subjects and bouquet of subjects, knowledge of not only one domain, but many domains. How people used to learn this. So if you think of the ancient university like Nalanda University, Takshila University, there were there were people like Aristotle, Socrates. They talk about so many things. How diverse was their understanding and how? So I just want to bring your attention to this concept of go back to the time that you see Aristotle in philosophy, you see his thoughts in sociology, you see his thoughts in, about history, everywhere in political science. How? In psychology. Why and how? So, can we really say that these people, these ancient people, were actually self directed learners? I'm just throwing a question. So, it says that it has been around since the beginnings of cognitive development and is a natural pathway to deep understanding and efficacy. Please mark these words if you are making notes somewhere, which I think I would say you please make notes to deep understanding and efficacy. So the word is deep understanding and the word is efficacy. It's not efficiency, it's efficacy. How my understanding builds my domain of being effective, being impactful. I'm not saying efficient, but being impactful. So the learning that I do is deep. My understanding is definitely deeper. And how with that understanding I make meaning, right? So it could be a body of work that we do. A little idea on the most valuable resource for engaging in self-directed learning. Like I said, self. So the word self, the world around me, and I want to know how these things connect with each other. So the biggest need for self-directed learning comes from the idea that somewhere in our system rules have ruled us, yeah, or maybe rules have ruined, because so learning becomes a teacher centric activity, rather it needs to become a student centric activity. And how will that happen? Only when students understand that I have an equal role in the system and I get the equal opportunity to create learning. And how do we do that? We'll definitely look at certain examples. So many interpretations are there. One of the ideas that I want to talk about is critical thinking, another concept which is much talked about, but sadly is just related to questioning, asking questions. Right. So the current stances in a classroom, and we all know it, is related to emphasizing on student questions. So with curiosity, we connect questions. With critical thinking, we connect questions. But the whole activity is much deeper, right? So how do I, in the process of self-directed learning, emphasize on definitely critical thinking, on reflection, and on questioning? How it's totally a process from moving from just asking about something or being curious to finding what it is, making meaning out of it, and doing something about it. So it's like a circle, and we'll see certain models in the process. So being a critical thinker, like I was saying, let's not confuse the two things here. I'm just bringing some clarity to it. Definitely in the process of self-directed learning, being a critical thinker helps. It definitely helps me. It's a part, right? So there are all deeper facets of thinking critically, which also includes self interest and responses. awareness again, my own credibility, what all resources I go to find. Like you are all here in the workshop. This opportunity was given to you somewhere, it was floated. You made a choice to come here and invest your time, right? I made a choice to come here and talk to people. So definitely it's not a compulsion that we all meet here. It's a voluntary act of making meaning. So I'm just trying to say that, but then back when you go, you think about it. What all did I do in the session? What was it about? What do I want to keep with me and what do I want to just throw away? So that's the whole process of learning is actually around that. So when post the session, maybe in the process you will have thoughts about it. You must be having a lot of questions. You must be waiting that when she stops talking, I will ask this. Right. So which is very important. And or maybe in the process you're also saying these are such repetitive concepts. I'm still wanting to see what is it, how to do it. So this happens with learners as well, but in the same way as we are here present today, in the same way we expect our learners, and in the same way I am expecting that you please be open, do check, hunt for more resources. Do not just rely on this one workshop to talk about self-directed learning, but also let this be a starting point, and we definitely can stay connected further to look around things here. Okay, so being open to new sources of information and perspectives, very, very important in self-directed learning and critical thinking. Continuing to build on combination of feelings, information, and new discoveries, like I was just saying. So why are we here? We want to learn something new. Why do we want to learn something new? Because it's important. Why is it important? Because my school wants me, or because I am curious by nature. I want to adopt new technologies. I want to benefit my learners. I want to try new things because I take risks as a teacher. Yeah. I want to evolve. These could be my own personal goals which bring me here. Yeah. In the interest of my children, which makes me a teacher who's trying to blend new concepts into the classroom. Right. So continuing to build on the combination of feelings, information, and new discoveries. So, like we talk about learning, three domains of learning: your cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor. Psychomotor is our behavior. So, after this session, if you translate this into action, it's going to be effective in your own little ways, in your own methods. Right. So we'll just discuss about how this helps the students. What is the benefit and relevance? It basically helps students to become in charge. So more than the teacher directed or the teacher, emphasized styles, the onus lies. Someone said about ownership. So the owners, students become the owner in self-directed learning. So the relevance is we want them to take the ownership because our theories have moved from teacher directed, curriculum centric or teacher centric classroom to student centric systems, learning models. We are exploring that. Why are we exploring? Because we would want the children who are in your classes now will be the active citizens tomorrow in the society. They are right now as well, but they are very young. In the senior grades, if you see children are taking a lot of initiatives. They do a lot of discoveries, they do internships, they work with NGOs. How does this help them? This helps them make a conscious choice of where they want to use their learning. That's why we do projects. That's why we do a lot of community action service initiatives in IB also. Right. So definitely students become in charge. And how do we build learning? With myself, I am an active learner, with my peers as well. It does involve these kind of processes. Like I said, setting goals is also very important. And then reflecting. So you did a goal setting. What do you want to learn? If I asked you about your expectations, you said that I expect this here. Okay. And what is it that brings you here? Something new I want to learn. Or something, some blended technology, some more clarity, some more resources. So you have set a goal, maybe. Yeah. And self-directed learning also provides a means. Now, I'm going to connect this to learning styles. Why? Because that's how we have children. And we are talking about classrooms. We are talking about classrooms in the school. How do we implement this? Basis and existing theory that I have is about learning styles. So, what are the three learning styles, dominant learning styles? If someone can write in the chat, we have many, but multiple intelligence theory also says that there are learning styles and intelligences. Let's see what might be the learning style. Three styles I'm saying.
VAK, flipped
Okay.
classroom.
Okay. So what might VAK mean? That's very close. If you could please illustrate on that for everybody's understanding.
Activity based, think, pair, and share.
Mhm.
VAK is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic.
Absolutely. So think, pair, share, active learning, those are all strategies to achieve this method. But definitely the learning style that I was talking about is visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. Majorly,
Autonomous, yeah.
yeah, go on.
This one more autonomous, lifelong, venturesome, flexible learning styles.
Mm,
Rip
those are,
and blending,
yeah,
group learning.
group learning. Those are certain ways to achieve self-directed learning, maybe certain methods. But how do we really, implement? So once there is an understanding of what might be the learning style that helps me tailor the learning resources, that helps me tailor or create, choose the learning engagements, which we will see certain examples here. Thank you for your responses. So as we move further, definitely it's about visual, kinesthetic, and auditory. We'll see these three learning styles, but just a little disclaimer here that self-directed learning does not at all mean that the teacher is not required in the class. It is essential that the teacher becomes a facilitator and just sees this as a, it's such a joy it brings when you try, when you let the reins go from your hands to learners' hands. It might be chaotic. I have also seen some of my colleagues who want to still hold on to, when they do not create those opportunities, or when they have certain fear of there will be chaos and learners might not be able to take it. Trust me that you are essential as always, but you also need to see that I need to let go of my hold and control in the class to learners' ownership and learners' autonomy in the classroom. And at all, nowhere in the process, teacher is not required. You are more required than ever, because they need to be still guided. They need to still be, put on the path that they are doing something. So the consolidation needs to be a teacher's business like forever. So just a disclaimer, I thought I should put it here. Seeing some of my colleagues not really trying because there is a little they are a little hesitant in trying that. Okay, so now we come to visual learners. So as per the learning styles, what might be certain activities, as I'm going directly into this, that and then we'll explore certain models, certain activities if you see that can also help you plan that how do I look at my visual learner. So in a classroom setting, if you know that there are three styles, so I'm talking from the resources perspective. Now, how do you really how do you really ensure that there is enough material for all learners? Or I cater to their learning style so that they learn better. That's what a teacher's role in a self-directed learning classroom needs to be. Right. So one of them is, of course, reading, looking, and presentation. So, for instance, I am planning a classroom on the structure of a leaf, or photosynthesis, or I'm trying to say that you think about French Revolution. What can I bring to all these three kinds of learners? I might arrange certain case studies, articles, blogs for them to read and create meaning. Okay. So then it helps catering them. Then I had to go to my auditory learners. So the same case studies, same reports or resources that I have for my visual learner with graphs and pictures also can come to my auditory learner with the help of certain recorded lectures. Like someone spoke about blended learning or AI, or artificial intelligence using in the classroom. We have enough recorded material also, or some of us even like to record our own, voice, which we can provide in the class with certain learning stations that it caters to their learning style so that their ownership comes in. Why am I talking about learning style here? Because If I am a kind of learner who thrives on listening, but my teacher only shows a lot of material on just reading, I might be I might not connect to it. So what might be a teacher's role here or a facilitator's role is to blend, is to try that there is enough in my lesson for auditory learners, for visual learners, for kinesthetic learners. I need to make sure that if in order for them to take onus of their own learning, I need to ensure that the resources that I'm bringing to them need to be a lot, as per their style to for that becomes more effective. Or if you think that you don't want to, there's a lot of work on hunting for resources, you might also delegate to certain students to say that, I need these resources, would you go research and bring it back for the entire class? Somebody talked about think pair share. Now, how will I be think pair share here? I'll say, okay, Shweta, you and Ria need to work on this project on French Revolution. I would like you to get me some interesting case studies. A flipped learning model. I'm trying to say that if I have to say do it tomorrow, I might say that please bring me some case studies. Or if at all you find some interesting videos, bring them as well. Right. So that is where your resourcing is done. You've asked the children to go home, research, bring these resources for the whole class to make meaning. And there you go. You try to provide these experiences with, with the, I'm assuming that we have boards in our classroom, smart boards. We have some sort of, projectors to project certain kind of things, or maybe audio visual aids we can. I think a lot of classrooms, I'm assuming here, if at all you do not have it, there are certain other arrangements that you can make, which you may ask in the question answer round to me, please. Then kinesthetic learning, basically kinesthetic learning would be you don't really need to have any sort of material hunting for them, but rather a place hunting, right? So if you say that, okay, let me help you learn the context of photosynthesis or the structure of a leaf. Certain concepts can be learned outside or in the school building only, but not all concepts. So you may say that the same history concept that I was talking about, Russian Revolution, how do you bring that to a kinesthetic learner? Right. So there are certain limitations as well, but at the same time, the kinesthetic learner, if I'm assuming that Shweta is dominantly a kinesthetic learner, it does not mean that I'm not visual or I'm not auditory. Okay. So it might be my dominant style that I'm kinesthetic. So in a class of 30, 35, 40 students, you will have a variation, a mix. All of us have VAK, but one or two styles may be more dominant, maybe more closer to my learning style. But it does so for a kinesthetic learner, if your concept allows you to move out of the classroom, go out in the school garden to look at the structure of the leaf, please do that. If it allows you to, ask students to get some leaves to the classroom, please ask them to bring it. If it allows you to, you know, uh, as a flip classroom model, you say that, okay, go home, talk to your parents, do a little survey on if what they know about Russian Revolution or what they remember about Russian Revolution, as they have done so. Survey 20 people and come back to the classroom to collate this understanding. And your kinesthetic learner is happy because you've asked them to create questions, you've asked them to look for certain opinions, do a certain movement. Or in the school only, you can ask them to, go to the next class or a staff room, ask teachers, whosoever is sitting, because all of us have done this history concept. You may ask them, what do you remember of Russian Revolution? What importance does it hold? Or do you even remember? So things like that will just be a pre-engagement to the subject matter that you are going to present to them. So learning styles definitely are an essential component when you talk about self-directed learning. Now, there is another term that I think we should talk about is independent learner. Who is an independent learner? So self-directed learning, when I spoke to you about, I said that as a teacher, you can weave in resources, keeping the learning style in mind. Now I'm coming to the learners. So if I want my learner to be independent learner, then they need to have this clarity in mind what to learn and how to learn. what my teacher wants me to learn, and how do I approach this learning. So this some of my dear friends, what they do, they simply give a research project to children and they say go explore in the name of independent learning. But that's not what it is. You still have to guide them along the way. There needs to be some guided questions, some guiding questions, some sort of framework that they need to, you know, go home and look around. So, just to give you a context, we were doing this grade 11. I was just one of the class that I was observing. It was a grade 11 class. The teacher was talking about sustainable developmental goals, and she was talking about a lot of climate issues that we are, a lot of, world challenges that we are facing: climate crisis, poverty, gender insensitivity, wars, and includes the LGBTQ rights and all everything she was talking about. And then the learner simply says that, okay, ma'am, this climate crisis is here, but don't you think that climate crisis is not because of us? It's because of the previous generation. We did not do it. And why do you think we should now stop using ACs, try to limit polythene, and try to, simply use green energy, which actually is coming from, again, fossil fuels? So, what's your take on it? He asked the teacher, really, it's in my presence only. And the teacher says, okay, you go home, research, come back. But then what happened in the process? The learner is curious, the learner is asking, the learner is thinking. What do you think a teacher should do? If you had been that teacher, if you would have been that teacher, what would you have suggested to this learner who says that all the current problems that the world is facing is created, a lot of them is created by previous generation. Why this generation has to be very, very mindful? Or why do we solve the problems? If you would have been that teacher, what would you tell the child? You may write that in the chat, or anybody can please unmute and share. Or you may raise hands, I think. What would you suggest this child who says that, come on, the problem was created by my grandfather, maybe, or my father? What would you say if we have any responses?
Yeah, research on what led the previous generation to take those actions,
Okay,
so that
interesting.
next generation doesn't say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. But how do you, so that's what I'm saying. That would you also, when you say research, what do you expect? You expect the child will
One
go
more
to,
comment.
yeah,
Yeah, if we protect now, then future generation will be beneficial.
okay, all right, yes. But the child is questioning, why do I do it? All of us have around 70 or 80 years of life, and I simply don't take this responsibility. I say, my time is going well, I am privileged. What is it that I need to do? And this is about the other part of the world which is not privileged. So as educators, we also need to be ready that when we spark curiosity, when we ask students to ask questions, we also need to be enablers in the process, and we also need to say, okay, let me come back to you on this question. Yeah.
Yeah, nature is for all of us. It's our responsibility. You, the child, is capable of creating solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but do we all
To
think
tell
that this
them
is,
what,
yeah,
yeah, to tell
tell
them
them?
what are the pros and cons.
Okay,
If we don't solve the problem, what will happen to the future generation?
that's a good thinking stance, maybe. But the child is asking in the present, why do I do what you are asking me to do? So telling, uh, stressing, emphasizing on the need, lot of knowledge building, it's enough, it is there. The generation now is using technology much more than us, and they do see this buzz all around, but they also see that, why it's the ownership is simply shrugged off. So thank you for sharing your thoughts here. Definitely, it makes a lot of difference. You're thinking about it. But if I had been that teacher, I would simply help the child connect the dots with a little inquiry in the class, and I would say, because that is my teaching moment. That's a teaching opportunity because he is asking. Okay, and I'm simply standing with the PPT. I'm talking about world problems, which is anyways, I think, I'm assuming a lot of information around us is being floated around these LGBTQ rights, or in the US what's happening, or there is a war that's happening. So what is it that the child thinks I can do? If I had been there, what I even tried, I said that, okay, let's see, first of all, if it was your grandfather or your grandparents, anybody who did this problem, there was a question around what kind of progress they made, or there's a response, right? So what made them do what they did? One question, definitely. Second, go look for historical perspective of the challenges in that time when plastic was originated. It actually came as a solution, but rather save along the green revolution. So sustainable development is the key. So develop earlier we were talking about development, but not sustainable. Now the word to note here is sustainable. Now what do I mean by sustainable? It means that I also think about how this will be recycled or how this will go back to the environment. Or I also think about the ecological impacts, because the ecological impacts affect me ultimately. So another, then I really spoke to this child and I said, go home. You try to inquire in your home. You see what sort of practices your parents had. To my understanding, previous generation in Indian homes, in the context that we are in, we always had these, cloth bags. We always used to recycle clothes. My mother never threw any old clothes. She rather would give it to somebody or use it as a duster. I'm talking about these things because these little things is where you can always connect the dots, and you can ask them, go home and look for the sustainable practices and ask your mother or your father or your grandparent, why do they do what they do? If you still see food wastage, one end we have hunger as a problem, another end we are wasting a lot of food, right? See why these contrasts are happening. This is a grade 11 child. So give the context, give them a little dot to map. So I'm just trying to say this, and one little thing was about the learner definitely is curious, the learner can research, but you need to say that let's talk about it, we'll come back to it. I want you to research economic development and see where the world moved. And now when we say save earth to the younger ones, we celebrate earth day like anything, but we must question, is it the earth that needs to be saved, or is it we who are saving ourselves? Yeah, because who are we to really save Earth? We just have to stop harming it. That's a perspective. I did this in my classes a lot, many times. And then one child one day asked me that, ma'am, on paper you are making us write save trees. Think, these are children, this is 10 years ago. And ever since then, I never celebrate. I never use good sheets to write save trees. We rather would use a lot of technology now. You see, you have it. These are the questions, learners do think, and we must question our ways. So to this grade 11 child, I would say go home, do a little survey, find out these answers to these three questions, come back to me, and we will discuss. So that's an opportunity. Okay, so I'm just here showing this little model to you, self-learning model, self-directed learning. Like we do teaching learning, there are certain models or taxonomy or frameworks that we follow. So a little model here, how it works if you talk about motivation. It has got four, phases or quadrants that you see. Cyclic in the process, learning is a cyclic construct. It's not like linear. Definitely has a lot of networking intersect. So to enter learning task, so you might say that I would tell this child that since you're curious to know about it, let us think about three questions that you will go home and research on and come back to build this understanding of why do you need to do it now. Yeah, because there are certain benefits of this world that you are enjoying. So do not shy away from the problems that are created. And earlier there were different set of problems. Now there is a different set of problems may remain. Yeah. So I would say, and then I say self-management to control one's behavior and resources. When I tell him or her to go resource, I would give them some trustable resources to say, go study this. Or maybe if you have already, find out what else can be done. Right. So to think independently, to solve problems creatively and make decisions, then you make a judgment on whether it was your grandfather or your grandparents who made these issues, or as a human crisis, we all are into this. The whole idea of development for the world was different in when the World War was happening, when the Second World War happened, when UN was established, right? So all these, even if it is a science stream children, that's why we have liberal arts, that's why we have everything else coming in, because we made compartments. Why NEP says that, offer choices, make different subject combinations, because development without an ecological perspective is what the world is facing, right? So lopsided views are not needed, and therefore we say that you think, you research, you connect the dots. Now, self-monitoring, the learner monitors one's own thinking and actions through the process. For this child only, who might document the responses, who might document certain study, I might say you carry out this project, the question that you have, right? And self modification to change behavior based on self monitoring and feedback received. So the teacher is, of course, essential in the whole process, because this question might also be coming in the mind of many other children, but they were not raising, right? So we also think of inquiry in this case to change behavior based on. So now the child might come and say, all right, I understand. That's where the world is. And if I'm enjoying the privileges, I might as well look at the pains. And like someone pointed out, that the future generation does not say the same thing about you. So see, how do you want to make this a better place collectively as a shared world? Like G20 also emphasized on one world, one future, one earth. See? Okay, this is also one model that, since we are talking about learners here, I will communicate. So you might also use this kind of self-awareness reflection exercise here when you talk about, when you ask your children to be self-directed learners. It's not that you go and say, okay, Shweta, become a self-directed learner, go do it yourself. It will not happen. I might not even know, right? So through your own modeling, through the stages, what kind of conversation can happen? Okay, that, today we are exploring sustainable development goals. I would like to see what you understand of them. I would like you to choose one goal and try to, delve deeper into it and see what kind of action you can bring with your understanding of why this problem is a problem. So if SDG, goal 4 is education, quality education, we all know that that's where we are emphasizing, with NEP also coming in the picture. But for learners, if you want to say that I would like you to research deeper into a concept and please evaluate your own learning, the onus lies with you also. Let's do this together. Like I would also say to my learners that I can only teach very limited, but you can learn a lot, because that is your active engagement, which will make me adjust. Like your questions might help me tune in. And the last question that I spoke about, this child, his question is so vital to the whole process, that made it even more meaningful for us to spend another class on it. Right. So as a facilitator, I just need to fine tune inquiry and try to build the whole understanding and make it more meaningful with students' engagement. So I say evaluate learning, go you research, there's a process, you evaluate your learning, you assess this kind of readiness. Are you ready for my feedback? Would you be ready to listen to what I'm saying here? Say yes, I might not be. I might not be. If the child says no, I'm not ready, say that all right, whatever you have understood, would you want somebody else's perspective on this? And the same might be, then try to pair up the child with someone else and ask two children to create a project and come with a presentation for the whole class. So these stages you can you can put them as a display in the class and talk about it. That I've come across this beautiful model, and I think that as learners, you are empowered to make your learning, your own learning goals, your own process in the sea. I want you to be more aware in the process. Don't just don't just think that everything I can bring to you. I would need your help in making this lesson meaningful. Right. So invite participation, invite their choices, invite their perspective. So invitations work brilliantly. Please try to do that. Set learning goals where I am. There was a beautiful poster I remember when stages of learning we would have. I'll see if it is available on the internet also. It says that learning has stages, much like rubric creation that you do. That you know, I am beginning to learn, I am developing learning, I am trying to be advanced, or I'm proficient in the learning phase. So, whichever stage I am in with reflection, I set a learning goal for myself and I say, okay, I still don't understand what photosynthesis clearly is and how does it help a plant? Okay, how is it connected to different seasons? Then I say, okay, let me go back and research, maybe collect a few samples, maybe try to approach friend who knows this concept better than going to the teacher directly. Or I might sit with the teacher one on one and say that I'm still so confused about it. Please help me develop this understanding. So, what are my resources? Once I set the learning goals, what are my resources? Who are the people who can help me? Who do I need to approach in the whole process? So many children do not come up to teachers, and that's a fact, especially in subjects like, allow me to say it, maths. So some children would say, when the teacher knows the subject is really hard, why is she not coming to me asking for what's my problem? And these are real testimonies. I can name the students who say this. This is my own daughter, I can tell. She would say, Mama, when my teacher knows that I struggle in maths, why is she not also, you know, providing me with some resources? Why do I always need to go and feel embarrassed in her class? Because she appreciates some other children who do something beautifully. That makes me think. Yeah, so that reluctance was harder. And then there comes another teacher who's so beautifully, engaged with her and says, it's okay if you don't know arithmetic progression. I am here to help you. Tell me what are your doubts. And maths is harder, but it is not something that is beyond you. So that faith, that onus to the time that she now solves all the question banks herself and she does not cry learning maths. Otherwise, being a teacher myself, I could never reach her. I lost my patience. When I learned that, okay, in grade 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, she's struggling. She's in 10th now. But from that time to this time, the tracking is I have evolved as a parent, and she's got some teachers who've given her faith to say that these are the resources, do it. I am available. Come, ask. Yeah, it happens in the journey. So that's a co-construct. That's what I'm trying to emphasize through this example. Engage in the learning process when the learner understands that, like the second point, if you see what good teachers do differently, all of us are good teachers, but what is it that I do differently to be an effective teacher to the child? I might adjust my methods of reaching the child. I might also try to talk about implicit understanding of the curriculum. No teacher ever says that you are a low level learner or something, but the child understands it that way through the methods that the teacher implies in the class. So doing speaks has more impact than what I say. If I always ask the best brilliant learners to solve a maths question in the classroom, I might not also have taken into account what will the other children feel and think. Yeah, so blended learning or the self-directed learning has to do a lot with learners' initiative and learners' onus. How will that be formed when the learner feels safe in the classroom emotionally to ask few questions, to feel that my teacher is ready to address my queries? Yeah, what's the whole idea of a school, of a perspective? If we all had brilliant students in our classroom, why are we even needed? Ask. Yeah, why are we even needed? So I would really, request all of us to stretch towards it. Why am I doing? Why, if my So, to the learner who we never reach, we are the most needed there. So try that you use this method and you say that I would like you to use this process of learning and let me see if this works for you. If this does not work, let's do something else. But give them that faith in the process. So one stepping stone to self-directed learning is the learner's faith in the whole process. Otherwise, if judgments are going to happen, it's going to be very difficult. Looking at time, I just come to strategies here to implement self-directed learning. One of them is getting very, very creative. 4 or 5 strategies, not big things we are going to discuss here right now. Very simple strategies that you can create a diorama. This looks like a grade 4, grade 3, grade 5 child's work, which might so the quality of work will vary with a learner who's in grade 11 or 10 or 9. You may ask them to use tech tools to create, presentations, audio-visual working models, or still to a kinesthetic learner or to a learner who loves to engage by doing things. You can ask them to create this kind of a habitat if you're studying natural habitats. Very simple. Or they apply their understanding. You may say it's like a quick formative or a summative. They may do it as a pair work, they may do it as a group activity, whatever allows your school setting or classroom setting. The other that I want to say, these might be very, very simple, but trust me, these are the ones that make a lot of difference for for them to understand that you're deeply interested in giving choice in the class. Okay, so another is creating a challenge using certain game-based strategies that encourage student participation, which could be again friendly competition. It's not that one of the fundamental rules is collaboration and cooperation. So whenever in the quest for learning, at no point I will create an inter-se competition in my class. It's very, very important because otherwise the child will simply be in a cocoon and will never let you enter his or her world. So it's a very, very delicate yet very, meaningful what do you say endeavor for a teacher to be present in a child's life, and that's how the impact happens. We learn best from the teacher or from the engagements that we feel more connected to. So my task is only to create those engagements. Everything else happens. Seriously. Okay, so bingo, it's like select any through, do a vertical tic-tac-toe game. You can solve any 4, any 3. You can select. So it's like facilitating choice in the classroom. In their free time also they can do. It's like an example for a reading bingo to emphasize reading. So those who love to write can invent a story. Those who simply want to share their opinion can talk about a different ending to the story. Right. So your differentiation is happening and there is more choice. And learners can choose any 3 activities from this and bring you the whole thing, what they have done about their project. So this becomes, your own facilitation for their meaningful participation. Another is allowing collaboration, like somebody spoke about think, pair, share, or also, so think, pair, share, and group learning are also brilliant ways. But still, how to learn is what the edge facilitator needs to, bring in the class. Maybe through guiding questions, maybe through certain resources and engagement, a storyboard, or something like you say that okay, I this is one storyboard. I would like all of you to write your own stories. Or maybe I would like Shweta and Riya to work on this storyboard and share this story from the character's perspective. Right? If I am this girl in the story, what will be the story like? And you'll have maybe 20 different stories with the same picture. And each child will be owning up this story that the child wrote. You can still check their accuracy, their spellings, their own. So this is a little differentiation in place. Again, VAK, somebody might also narrate an audio story to you. Say that I would like you to record a story, use Flipgrid, record a story and send it to me. Yeah. Or maybe if you are the character, create a scene in the story. Create a scene, present a scene in the classroom. What's your story title? Or rather, if an elevated stage, if you want some children to, they are creative, you know that, say that I would like you to create a storyboard like this for a challenge to other group in the class. They love it. It's the same method. I'm trying to help them write stories. The skill is writing, and I'm definitely inviting others reading, writing skills, and listening also. Right? Speaking as well. I think that's all from my side. I would like to end here with these certain strategies, and we would be okay to ask to take your questions in place if you have anything. There are certain things about blended lessons also, which we may keep for other time, but your questions are very important. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Yeah, ma'am, we have one question here. How can self-directed learning be integrated into curriculum and educational standards while still meeting traditional learning objectives?
Okay, so that's interesting. One of the fundamental ways is we are not changing theories here. We are basically trying to say that you do the things that you have been doing, do them differently. So when you say if you see the concept of learning, the curriculum remains almost the same. The concepts are the same. No one's really changing concepts. Only thing is we are adding certain dimensions to the concept. So in history, if you see, children are still learning French Revolution, Russian Revolution, or consumer rights, in economics. So the content remains somewhere same, just a little addition to media studies, or informed practices. SDG is new concept altogether, but that's also coming from the same knowledge domain. So if you look at knowledge, knowledge is still the same. The way the concepts remain the same, building blocks. So all I'm saying is that when you say self-directed learning, either you teach me or you help me make an effort to learn by exploration. That's where the only difference is. So my teacher, when she was teaching me a concept on, you know, what do you call it? Food. So I'll tell you an example. Food, when we were learning, we are what we eat. I learned about balanced diet. I learned about how food is grown. I learned farmers sow seeds. I learned that there is a natural farming method and there is an organic farming, or there is something called chemical farming. Right. So I know in the market there are three, four techniques, and I understand use of fertilizers and this happens, that happens. But I still do not choose to eat a balanced meal. Now the whole idea is when I myself tracked the whole steps from farm to factory or farm to plate, where we emphasize students to go home, to go to a grocery store, to track where this food is traveling from and how this food comes to your plate. So when they read labels, when they see, okay, avocado is actually not something that India would have, or maybe that the apples that I'm eating in summer or the watermelons that I'm eating in winter are actually coming from cold storage, which actually is not healthy because in the process of storage and transportation, nutrients are lost. Or as at the same time, eat local. Why is it happening? Because there is an economy connect to this whole thing, that the farmers here in my local geography are not benefiting because the markets for them is not working. Rather, I'm going to a multinational store and I'm saying that, all right, let me buy this packaged food. It's ready made. It's healthy because the advertisement shows me it's healthy. So I believe now, where is this perspective? When everybody has learned about balanced diet. So now, because we are all adults, and you see that, I'll give you a context. You see that hospitals are full of diseases. There are so many lifestyle diseases. Now, let's question if all of us have learned the same thing in education, we all have, learned about in our science textbook. Are we really following those methods? Are we eating food which is preservative free? Are we trying to, go away from high sodium, high sweet diets? What's changing? So the world, if you see the context, it remains the same. But when in our classes, I think 2019, the whole thing came to me one more time. How? When I opened this idea for them to inquire, and when they were inquiring, I had to also inquire. how this food travels. Let me, map the journey of bread, of bun. Let me see how cheese travels. What all is a local produce? Why, this Kharif season and, the other season is there, Kharif crop and Rabi crop. And what I eat in winter is actually sown in summer, right? And what I eat in summer is actually sown in winter. So I'm just trying to give you a lot of connections here. So when I thought about this after becoming a teacher, 18 years in my service, I realized, oh my God, I never thought this way. I never thought. And I never changed my practices also. I always felt whatever is coming in a bottle is healthy because the media tells me it's healthy. Right. So all I'm saying is that the content remains the same. Only thing is that the way you approach it, the way you help a learners create that meaning is something different. And that's where the biggest opportunity lies in pedagogy, in how you do something. You'll do the same thing. Cooking is still the same, but how do you approach it makes a lot of difference in the outcome. Right. So it's a very simple example from daily life that I try to bring across. Hope that I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. We have another question here: how to motivate the child for self directed learning? The child of sixth standard classes, 6 to 8.
Yeah, sixth to eighth. So, yeah, definitely. I think the great question because what you try is when, for instance, you are here today and you are here because you got an invite or you had a choice. Now, when I see the learners who are coming into my class, they are here to learn. I am there to teach. Together, we are spending time and together we have some curriculum to address. Now, one way to do is I go the traditional way. I teach everything and they learn everything. They write in the paper, I check it and it's done. Right? But now we are talking about learning outcomes and we are also talking about behavioral outcomes. So for children in grade 6 to 8, you may build a dialogue with them that, all right, I am thinking that everything is, I'm speaking a lot in the class. I want you to speak. I want to hear what you think about it. I want to see what is it that works for you and what is it that does not work for you. So one of the best ways is to take feedback. One, help them create a reflection routine in the class. When you say that a simple strategy I give you, clear and cloudy. You start by, little steps here. So you may first say that, children, I'm thinking that in order to learn more, since you are the learner and I am also a teacher here, we learn together. One, create this culture in the class to say that whatever questions you have, I'm ready to answer and we are ready to explore together. Right. One. Second, first is building a dialogue. Second is looking at their questions. How do you build a dialogue when you allow children to ask questions? How do you ask them to take their questions? You may say at the end of every class, you may say that what's clear to you, what's not clear. Now next class when you come to what is not clear to them, they understand that you are genuinely interested, that you don't lose my question, or you don't even leave me in the ocean of learning to say, okay, go research. You rather help me learn. Approach the child, So what I will say, build a lot of trust. Second, build dialogue. Third, ask for feedback. Say that I'm trying my best to teach this concept to you. Tell me, how do you want to learn this? If you ask this, they say, ma'am, please show us a video. Ma'am, do not teach us right now. Take us out in the, open. You may say, okay, how will this help us cover this concept? You say, okay, it might not help, but give us 15 minutes. So you say, all right, let's learn this concept. I have a few questions. You take these questions, explore answers. I give you 10 minutes. So you trade time. You trade the time so that their choice is also there and your curriculum is also completed. Yeah, or maybe the best way is set a routine. The ideal routine would be 5 minutes or 10 minutes of your time to connect the dots. Say, what did we learn yesterday or the last class? Okay, how is it connected to today's class? What is it that think pair share activity will happen? Kya karenge? What will we do in think pair share? How will now we come back as a class so that we all share each other's work? And we all, so you may say that, okay, talk to three people in the class and share your responses. and the child moves around. There is a movement, and you say, all right, let's come back. So in the class, I want everybody to tell me, what did we explore today? So what's clear, what's cloudy? So clear, in put the charts in your board if that's allowed. Put the A3 sheet, say what's clear and what's cloudy. That's your quick exit ticket. And next time when you go, take the cloudy things and try to address them. So invite questions, invite feedback, build dialogue, create a routine. Then only students, you enable them to understand that you are genuinely interested in helping them explore learning by their own way. I hope that helps.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. We have another
Certainly.
question here. Ma'am, as we have in certain boards, just to focus on mugging up the content and just write, how we can make teaching and learning fruitful for class 11 and 12 grade students in
In
commerce?
commerce. Yeah. In commerce, if you see, so commerce is, so if you see the again, I would say that the learning goals, we are not compromising on them. The goals will remain the same. So like to give you an example, mugging up exams and mugging up. These two things are vital. But the way we approach is, one way is I say, okay, you have board exams. Come on, study, study, study. NTSC है, NEET है, नहीं होगा. What will you do? The university will not give you admission. Come on, CBSE works like this. One dialogue is this. Another dialogue is that, all right, we know that we have to do certain things because they are essential, non-negotiable. So can you please learn about balance sheet or accountancy if these are the subjects that are there? You say that's how the whole combination looks like. So the concept of learning is not about what do you always want to learn. It's always also about what is available and what the path demands. If boards demand you to, mug up certain concepts, be open to mugging up. But at the same time, I am more interested in helping you learn how to make use of it. So mugging up at any point or rote learning, so like formulas you have to learn, tables you have to learn, right? Certain things, periodic table, if no science students will learn it, he will absolutely be bombarded or she will be lost. So certain things, as you may say that 30% of the curriculum is non-negotiable. I can't do anything about it. Let's accept the way it is. But yes, how do you approach it is what matters. So now, if you have to learn about a balance sheet, please remember the concepts, accountancy, the way they are. I struggled in doing this actually. And but then how I wish my teacher would have brought a lot of case study, a sample balance sheet in the classroom to help me dissect what are the components, what do I notice, right? And how can I design a different balance sheet? So it's like reverse thinking. So the components that are there are essential. I understand that, oh my God, everything does not happen with my wish. There are certain ways things happen. So if boards require me to learn certain answers, the only way is to learn. But there are practical aspects to it where I can approach learning differently. Right. So all I'm inviting you all is to try different methods for the same learning to be created. For the same learning. The domain of learning remains the same. Content, no one is actually changing. Content is what the CBSE or NCRT changes. But we approach it a little differently through different case studies and relevant methods. So mugging of concepts can be 30%, but not entirely like that. So if Russian Revolution has to be learned, one of the provocations or engagement would be that what is a revolution? How does that happen? Give me 5 examples of revolution in history. Then you are creating that sort of dialogue. Or if in economy, consumer courts, the CBSE has given a project. I remember grade 9, 10th also, children were doing it. Case studies. So you say Nestle case study, Maggie, right? This is real life example. So go research about a case study, come back bringing a story to me. And why do you think that matters? Now let's understand consumer goods. Why are they important? So there is one provocation could be there was somebody who wrote a letter to who wrote an RTI to RTI to ask about Nestle's details, and this RTI is available on the internet. So that could be your starting point to go to consumer courts and to say, oh my God, why are these available? What happens? What's the facility? What can I do with it? You know? So that's where we can approach it differently, but the concept remains like that.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have one more question here. Ma'am, can you please tell how to maintain the attention of students throughout the 40 minutes of class, especially for Hindi?
Mm. You see, that's what I'm saying. So the recipe, I would say it's interesting. I say to a lot of teachers in my in the work, the way I work with them, I say create your own class recipe. So the recipe would be, you see, so you all have best recipes on the way you want to spend your time, on the way you want to do something with your life. There is some recipe that you control and some recipe that just happens. So create a structure to the class. 40 minutes. 40 minutes is actually, if you will realize in a from a point when you really implement this concept in the class, you will say, oh my God, 40 minutes are so less. So I'm giving you a goal to reach that stage. But how to address it is by saying that 5-10 minutes of a check-in, that check-in, so children should be aware of your structure of your class. Break it down. Break down 40 minutes to structure. Say that 10 minutes I'm going to, talk about how are you doing, what's working well, what's not working well. Okay. So then I'm starting with that. I'm including a few students and I say, what is it that's going well today? So this way you will gauge if children are ready or not ready. If there is somebody who's stressed, somebody who's anxious about the test that you're going to take. Right. So there are many tools available. So one quick question would be, how are you feeling? What's happening? What are you enjoying today? Then 5-10 minutes on a general check-in. And then I say, okay, last class we learnt about Sarvanam Sanghya or maybe, Samuchay Bodhak, Samuchadi Bodhak, jo bhi usko bolte hain. Yeah. And we learned this. So are you clear on this? Do you see them? Did you see notice some usage in your own familiarity? Children say, oh no, ma'am, I have never noticed. What is it that we do? Why do we have to do? Right. So then say, all right, let's me say. So 10 minutes gone, 15 minutes of your teacher talk time. You said, okay, so the concept is, I think we need to revisit the concept. I think we are going to today learn another concept with it. So 15 minutes of your time. Then next 10 minutes you spend on saying that I would like, student A and student B to pair up and help me create a sentence using a lot of say visheshan. So आप वो बना के लाए 5 sentences or you may say that create a story. So pair work, put some pair work. So 5 to 10 minutes of general check-in and well-being. 15 minutes of your talk time is the concept that you are building on. Next 10 minutes students work with each other and the last time that you are left with how much? 15, 10, 25, and then 10 minutes, 35. And last 5 to 10 minutes you can keep for a common sharing. What did we all share, learn today about Visheshan? Or where do we notice? So it is used to describe what's a concept that you do in English about Visheshan. So that's adjective. Yeah. So adjective के लिए क्यों use करते हैं? For who all we use it. So you can then come a common consolidation. So these are different variation that helps you divide 40 minutes and you can keep them on time. They learn to manage their time. You can pull them to say, all right, enough wherever we are, it's good. But next class, we will explore it. So give presentation time to children. Make sure that at the end, you definitely have two things coming in. One is student presentation. What did they work around? And just 2-3 minutes of your questions, burning questions that they might have. Again, clear cloudy is a beautiful strategy, works very silently. You can collect it by in writing. So create a corner in your class and say whatever is clear right there, whatever is cloudy right there. So you're sorted. Just give a structure to your class is what I would say. And then the attention happens. Certain times brain breaks are a good way to say that, okay, I see you being lethargic. So I've seen teachers use these magic mantras. They say hocus pocus, let us focus. Okay, everybody clap. So 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. These little strategies, especially with 6, 7, 8, it works. They enjoy. There's no problem. Even 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, if you ask them to do a little movement, they definitely laugh initially, but they start valuing it. They understand that, okay, my teacher really is firm and she wants me to move. That means she wants me to move. Create a structure. Share it with students. Say that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. They'll be giving you reminders and you would feel, oh my God, 40 minutes is so less. Yeah, so just be an observer when they are working. That's what I would say.